So thinking about inheritance in a way we're familiar, genetics and inheritance controls gender, male and female. And if we think of all of our DNA, so I'll zoom in and out basically from the very molecular level to cellular level. Watson and Crick discovered this structure of DNA. It tends to be seen as this twisted ladder with rungs, and each of those rungs really contains the information. I usually think of two analogies for DNA. One is that physical twisted ladder structure, but there's a way in which DNA is also like a language. It has an alphabet, 4 letters. They're chemical letters, but those letters, you really can almost speak in terms of words. We call them genes. And there's 20 to 30,000 estimated. That varies depending on what algorithm you're using. Well, that doesn't sound like much. Well, you can use words in a book multiple ways, and how they occur in a sentence in a particular order, in a paragraph, in a context, that all carries meaning. And the same thing is true in DNA. You have these words, but they're employed at different times, in different places, in different cell types to encode 10 fingers, 10 toes, 2 ears, a nose, so forth. So somehow that's all packaged in these rungs of that DNA ladder. Now there are 6 billion rungs of this ladder, 6 billion letters in our cells, 3 billion times 2. And I say it that way because 3 billion comes from mom, 3 billion comes from dad. And it's not like dad's information encodes my right arm and mom's is my left. Dad has information for my entire body, and so does mom. And it's, in a way we still don't fully understand, the interaction between these two codes that decides which dominates. So maybe my dad has brown eyes and my mother has green eyes. Well, they're each going to pass on information, and it might be that one says brown and one says green. Well, one might be dominant, and so if brown is dominant, all you're going to see is brown eyes in me. But if I have children, and I marry someone with green eyes as well, I still have the information for green eyes. It's hidden. It's recessive. But I can have children who have green eyes because she might pass on green, I might pass on information for green, and on it goes. So this invisible structure that you need high-powered microscopes to visualize, basically DNA, X-rays to visualize is what Watson and Crick used, has in its ladders, billions of letters, the information for all the different traits. It's compressed. When you see cells under a microscope, this is often done, let's say in high school biology or early college courses, you might cut open a root of a plant to look at cells dividing and stain them, and you'll see these little thread-like structures. So that's really DNA that's really wound together and compressed. It's not this really long billion rung long ladder in our cells. It's wound up and packaged together so it fits. And you can visualize our 3 billion times 2 letters that way. They're broken down into 46 chromosomes. And to switch analogies again, it's in a sense like book chapters. You have an analogy for words, paragraphs, context, sentences, and meaning in DNA, also at the level of chapters. So it's 46 chromosomes, 23 times 2, 23 from dad, 23 from mom. And gender is controlled, and you can even understand gender at that level. There's 23 pairs. Pretty much every pair has, if you look under the microscope, the same, a corresponding sized pair. So chromosome 1 is fairly long, and you'll find dad's version like this and mom's version like this. 22 is really short, so dad has one like this, mom has one like this. Well, you get to the 23rd pair, that's the sex chromosomes. And females, it's XX, and the X is fairly long. Males are XY, and you can see the Y because it's fairly short. That's what controls gender. So you see it as these different size strings, basically. But what you're really looking at, if you could zoom in, is this twisted ladder-like structure, highly wound around and compressed so it fits. And so that's just a little glimpse into the ways in which DNA is used and expanded and compressed and passed on from cells, and then ultimately it controls for traits we can see, for gender, for hair color, eye color, height, and so forth.